I've got an interesting guitar with me today. This is a Cort Effector, which from my understanding is a mid to late 80s guitar. And what makes this one so interesting to me is that it has a bunch of built-in effects and a bunch of batteries in the back to run them. We'll get to those in a second. Let me explain a little bit here. It's made by Cort, which from my understanding is the same company that used to make Cortez guitars. It's like a Japanese company that was part of the whole lawsuit. They got sued in the 70s and they changed their name. And so this is a guitar that came out from that period, kind of an entry-level guitar, though not super entry-level. And it has two pickups, no pickup selector, so you always have both pickups on all the time. And then it has a tone knob, as usual. But then we get to this batteries in the back. It takes two 9-volt batteries. And what those are for is to run all these effects down here. And we have on this, there's something that says phase, which I'm guessing, that doesn't require the batteries, so I'm guessing that the phase just changes, it drops the volume level a lot. I'm thinking that maybe that has something to do with like the wiring of the pickups, just makes them single coil or like makes them inverted or not. I'm not sure about that, but something like that. But the other ones here are effects. We have a delay, a vibrato, and then a wah and a chorus. And then there's also a distortion on the bottom. And the strange thing is, well, one of many strange things on here, is the chorus and the delay have their own button, but then the vibrato and the wah, you press this button to change the chorus and the delay into vibrato or wah, which is kind of interesting. And so it also has on here a tremolo, which I don't have the bar for, so I can't show you. This one's in really rough shape, so to some degree I don't know how much my criticisms, which are coming, of the effects in here are related to this guitar just not being in good condition and how much are just how they always were. The internet doesn't seem to think that they were ever particularly great or usable effects, so we'll get there in a second. This right here, it usually has a, what are those things called? The string lockers, you screw it down and hold it in place, but that's the top of it's missing. A lot of things are missing on this guitar. The tuners are very rough, they feel really rough and have a lot of play in them, but they seem to hold the tune very well. When I picked this up, it's been sitting for probably weeks without anyone using it, and these strings must be who knows how old, and yet it was almost perfectly in tune. I barely had to tune it at all. It's missing a piece of the nut over here. Apparently somebody busted a nut, so to speak, on this guitar, and now they've just replaced it with a, looks like a chewing gum wrapper? I don't know, it actually works. Go figure. That surprised me. Alright, so now that we got all those things out of the way, let's get to the obvious. Let's first of all try and see how it sounds with just no effects on, just the guitar as it is. And it'll play like this even with the batteries missing. I like the way this guitar plays. I wish I had a way to select between these two over here, because all I have are both pickups at the same time, and I have to, on the amp over here, turn the bass down pretty low to get it where I want it to get the bite out of it. But other than that, I actually have a pretty high opinion of how the guitar itself plays. It definitely needs to be set up. I'm sure it hasn't been set up in 2 decades at least, and these strings may be years old. My fingers are already getting completely gray from all the rust on here. Plus these are, I think, a 12 gauge and just really dead, maybe even heavier than 12, honestly. So it's a little bit of a challenge for me to play, but even despite that, I like it. I'm not the biggest fan of necks that are painted like this. They feel a little weird, but all in all, not bad for the kind of budget guitar that it is. Now let's get into the effects, and in my opinion, they're very bad, but who knows what they originally sounded like. I don't think it makes a huge difference, but we'll see. So one of the first things that I noticed on is that if you press the button to turn on the effects, you get no sound at all, unless you press another button, which is kind of weird. I would think it would just work fine. If So let's first go with the delay up here. The delay sounds to me more like a tremolo. I'm like playing around with here to make sure that everything is right on here because it just... Okay. Speed knob to adjust that. And then if you press the other button, it converts that into a vibrato. I think is very muffled. Let me try knocking down a bit of the bass on there. Ends up being very muffled on there, and it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot I can do about that. Next, let's try going over to the chorus effect. I can do a speed adjustment on there. Let's make it real slow. And then pressing the other button converts that to a wah effect. Let's see what that sounds like. Subtle. I don't hear a whole lot except for... I'm wondering if some of the capacitors in here have gone out because it's a bit... There's a train going by here too, but that shouldn't pick up in the mic. Or this mic anyway. It feels like maybe there's some capacitors that have gone. It sounds like there are a bit of off notes in there. I suppose that's one of the things I'll have to take a look when I dig through this guitar a little more. Alright, so we've tried all those. Now let's go for the distortion. This button's a little sticky on this guitar, so I have to play with it to get it to go. That's also very muffled, so I'm going to pull down the drops the volume a bit, so I'm going to pull it up a little bit over here. Let's see where that gets us. Of course, it doesn't. Alright, so yeah, this thing I got this, all the jacks and the knobs working out well in here. Let's try this. So there is a tone knob on here. I already feel like it's darker than I want it to be, but if I were to pull that down, it really drops out the volume, especially with the effects. Pull that up all the way. The other thing that I noticed is that with the distortion, not with any of the other effects, but with the distortion, when you first turn it on, there's a delay before it comes on. So does it every time with the distortion. None of the other effects seem to do that. I'd take it back. Maybe they do. Alright, well it's worse with the distortion, but I guess they all do it. I was originally thinking that maybe that was attributed to weak batteries in here, but I tested them both, and no, they seem to be okay. So that's basically the guitar as it is. And I'm sure this one would sound quite a bit better with some work, or I don't know if it would sound better, the effects would sound better, but it would play easier. I've been struggling a little bit with these heavy gauge strings and the high action, but honestly not that much. A lot less than I expected I would when I first picked up the guitar. It plays pretty well. So my ultimate opinion on this guitar, I have very different opinions on the guitar versus the effects in it. If you find this for cheap, and I think that this was acquired very cheaply by someone, it plays pretty well. Like, I like the way it plays. I like the way it sounds on the when it's effects off. Like I said, the painted neck feels a little bit weird, but otherwise it's a pretty nice guitar for probably the money you'll find it for. So for that, I would definitely play it. I might just not even bother putting batteries in. I feel like they're not the most usable effects possible. But for practicing bedroom level, I suppose you could use that distortion for something. So anyway, that's the Cort, or the Effector by Cort. Hope you've enjoyed.